Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you follow law school admissions at all, you already know the CLAT UG exam is notoriously grueling. It's tough, but a really revealing new committee report has just dropped, and we're going to unpack it together. We'll look at the glaring structural problems they actually admitted to and the massive overhaul they're suggesting to finally fix it. What if the test to enter law school was inherently unfair? It's a pretty heavy question, right? For years, students have agonized over this single, high-stakes exam. But after a deep dive into the test's mechanics, the committee has finally acknowledged what so many people have been whispering about for a long time. The current setup might actually reward pre-existing privilege, expensive coaching, and rote memorization way more than true legal potential. So we're going to see exactly how that happens, and more importantly, how they plan to stop it. Section 1, a broken law exam. Let's do a rapid-fire breakdown of the glaring issues across the board. Starting with the English section, the committee noted that answers can often be found literally word for word in the text. I mean, that's just testing copying and matching, not genuine understanding. Then you've got general knowledge, which mixes trivial facts with these hidden comprehension questions, and they often use vague wording that makes multiple answers seem totally correct. Moving on down, legal reasoning is heavily criticized because it mostly just tests reading comprehension using news articles rather than actual legal thinking, not to mention being absolutely riddled with errors. Logical reasoning? Well, it often drifts into literary interpretation rather than pure logic, and it suffers from extreme ambiguity. And while the quantitative section, the math, is the least error-prone, it's incredibly repetitive, testing the exact same narrow skills like ratios and percentages over and over again. But the problems, they don't just stop at individual sections. Beyond those isolated issues, the committee found massive systemic flaws. The whole exam essentially ends up testing the exact same basic reading comprehension skills repeatedly across different sections, instead of measuring distinct aptitudes. Even worse, it unfairly requires prior legal knowledge, like understanding the Contract Act. Remember, we're talking about an undergraduate exam here. Expecting 17-year-olds to already know a law school curriculum is kind of backwards, right? This gives a massive advantage to wealthy students whose expensive coaching centers can easily spot predictable, repeating themes like juvenile justice or data protection. Add to that a pattern of genuine factual errors that lead to constant lawsuits, withdrawn questions, and revised results almost every single year, and you've got a system in total crisis. Section 2. The committee's three-part fix. So the committee's primary solution is a massive structural overhaul. They're drastically cutting the bloated 5 sections down to a tightly focused 3. The old sprawling system of English, GK, legal reasoning, logical reasoning, and quant, that's gone. In its place, we're getting a sleek new lineup: a merged logical reasoning and legal aptitude section, a revamped language and comprehension section, and an improved quantitative techniques section. It's leaner and, as we'll see, it's a lot meaner in terms of testing actual skill. And perhaps the most dramatic change of all, they're completely throwing out the general knowledge and current affairs section. The reasoning here is crystal clear. The committee realized this section literally just rewards the ability to memorize obscure facts. By totally eliminating it, they are successfully killing the requirement for endless, mindless memorization of trivia. This forces the exam to focus on how a student thinks, rather than what a student can quickly recall from a flashcard. Section 3. Testing logic, not memory. Now, this is where the magic really happens for the newly merged logical reasoning and legal aptitude section. The exam will now strictly test 2 core abilities. First up, rule application. They're going to give you a rule and ask you to logically apply it to a completely new hypothetical situation. Second, rule derivation. They'll give you a set of facts, and you have to act kind of like a detective to figure out the overarching general rule guiding those facts. And here's the absolute kicker. No prior legal knowledge will be expected. None. Every question will be entirely self-contained. You literally just need your brain and your logic. The other 2 remaining sections are getting a really thoughtful upgrade as well. The language section is shifting away from testing basic grammar or fancy vocabulary. Instead, it's going to test your grasp of implied meaning, understanding what isn't explicitly said, along with detecting the tone of a piece and judging whether an argument is strong or weak. Basic English is still required, but pretentious vocabulary definitely won't save you here. As for the quant section, it keeps the foundational numbers and ratios, but adds some much-needed variety. It's going to push for higher-order reasoning, finally putting an end to that repetitive percentage math that plagued the old test. Section 4. Leveling the playing field. 120. That is the exact number of minutes the exam will take. The total exam time stays exactly the same at 2 hours. However, the experience within those 120 minutes is changing drastically. With only 3 sections and each section capped at just 10 to 15 questions, the total question count drops significantly. Guys, this is huge. Students will finally have the actual time to stop, read carefully, and genuinely think through these complex logic problems rather than frantically racing against the clock just to finish. It completely prioritizes depth of thought over speed of reading. Now, seeing all this emphasis on deep reasoning and argument analysis, you might be wondering, if the goal is to test a student's ability to construct and deconstruct arguments, why not just make them write an essay? Honestly, it seems like the most natural way to test a future lawyer, right? Well, the committee actually considered this deeply, but they decided against an essay component for now, and the reasons are purely practical. First and foremost, there's a massive fairness problem when it comes to grading. It's incredibly difficult to grade essays consistently and fairly across thousands and thousands of students. Plus, there simply isn't enough manpower to execute that grading accurately. It's not off the table forever, though. They plan to revisit the idea in 3 years. They're basically going to wait and see how the postgraduate exam's new problem question system performs first, before trying to scale a subjective writing test to the massive undergraduate applicant pool. If you take away just one thing from this explainer, let it be this powerful summary of the committee's core message. They want to completely strip away the outright errors, the rote memorization, and the wealth-backed coaching advantages. The singular goal now is to simply test a student's raw capacity to think, reason, and understand. It's a bold, necessary shift from testing what a student has been trained to parrot to testing how a student actually processes information. So, the committee has laid out an absolutely brilliant blueprint to fix a broken system. By removing trivia, penalizing rote learning, and slowing down the clock, they're designing an exam that actually respects the mind of the applicant. But we have to leave you with this final, lingering thought. Blueprints are perfect on paper. When the rubber meets the road and these new tests are printed and placed on desks across the country, will this truly level the playing field for everyone, regardless of their background? We're going to have to watch really closely as this new era of the exam unfolds. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.